Greetings, friends. Welcome once again back to my living room and my little makeshift studio. Don and I are here to make another video. It's been a long time since we've made a video. A lot of things have happened to me in my personal life, in my private life. I've had a lot of health issues to deal with, mainly to do with wounds and infections in my toes and my feet and my legs. There were doctors that wanted to sever many of my toes. I said no, because I knew and I prayed that Jesus Christ would come to my aid. And he did, to the great shock and surprise of learned medical people who said I had no chance of keeping some of my toes. And yet I trusted in Jesus. And I can still count to 20. I'm very thankful to say. And my doctors were utterly and totally shocked that my wounds and my infections healed. I had one doctor even using the words miracle and miraculous. I don't know if he really understood how accurate that he was. He literally got to witness a miracle. And I praise Jesus Christ for that. And other things that have happened, some of which have brought me joy and happiness. And there have been some things which have brought me great sadness. And yet, I'm still alive, and I still have a voice, and I still have my mind that works perfectly well. And I still have the knowledge that Jesus Christ has been teaching me for many, many decades, since I was about 16 years of age. We're now in the early part of October in the year of 2025. I almost said 1925, Don. I think we're a century later. And I now, more than ever before, want to share with you some of the many things which Jesus has shown to me through his word. Some of the things I'm about to say today and in coming weeks, I held back because I did not want to offend or to trouble certain people that I knew. Well, I'm not going to worry about that anymore. Remember Jack Nicholson in that movie, Don? You can't handle the truth. Well, there are going to be a lot of people who might see this who cannot handle the truth. There are some people who may very well see this that will feel great bitterness and hatred towards me. I don't want them to. You know, I've been a sports official, Don, for 61 years.
Wow.
And in all of those years, I've never tried to make people angry with me. And guess what happens, Don, inevitably?
They get angry with you.
They get angry because they don't like a call that I made. Or maybe they think I'm picking on their daughter or their son by making a certain call. Well, I've never done that. But some people, if they don't get their way, become just downright cantankerous and mean-spirited. And some of the people who become the most angry are people who, within their thoughts, within their mind, they think of themselves as being holy, righteous, loved by God and Jesus. And what they don't know is that if Jesus were to meet with them in a private conversation, he would most likely tell those people, I never knew you. But I did this and I did that, and I went to church every week, and I was a deacon, or maybe I was an elder. And I walked around acting so righteous and holy. And I wanted people to believe in me. I never knew you. Because you do not represent me. You represent a figment of your imagination. Well, let me get started in what I've been wanting to say. Again, this is week 1 of what will become a series. I don't know how long it will go on. I know that the message which I'm going to give today and in the coming weeks, you've heard me talk about Mr. Ted. Mr. Ted was a tremendous influence on me and on my life. He was a second father figure to me. He was a mentor to me. I'm happy to say that later on in life, we got to know each other very well. There aren't a lot of people who can actually say that, but I can truthfully say that to you. And Mr. Ted is no longer with us. He's been in his grave, Don, for almost 25 years. That's hard for me to believe that much time has passed. But Mr. Ted's wife was named Shirley, or as he called her, Cheryl. Shirley and I became the very best of friends and shared many conversations about many topics. And one time she heard me speak on this general subject. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Don. And she said to me, Michael, that needs to become your number 1 sermon that you talk about all the time. Well, I've shied away from that message because, again, I didn't want to offend anyone. I especially did not want to offend people who were very important to me because I loved them and I didn't want them to be angry with me. But now my handcuffs have been removed. My muzzle has been untied. And now I'm going to say what I really think. back in the early 60s, America was involved at that time, from the late 50s into the early 60s, before the Beatles showed up, in what was called the American folk music era. Are you old enough, Don, to remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. And so popular music was mainly folk music. The Kingston Trio and, there were other groups. They were wonderful musicians. And so often their songs were not about love and romance and I need a woman, the stuff that so many pop songs are made of. But they would make music about sometimes even sort of odd things and bizarre things. One song came out in 1963 by a singer by the name of Pete Seeger. Don, do you remember that name?
Yeah, there's 3 singers.
No, Pete Seeger.
Yeah, but in the group, there's, I think, another man and a woman. Now, didn't he do Puff the Magic Dragon?
No, that was the Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Okay.
Yeah, that was another one of the folk groups of the late 50s, early 60s. No, Pete Seeger was a folk singer, played a banjo, had a very distinctive baritone voice, and he sang songs which, if I got a catalog off, and you older people would actually remember some of these songs. But he did a song that he did not write the following song. A woman wrote it. I forget her name. But it was entitled Little Boxes. Have you ever heard that song, Don?
I probably have, but...
It's a fascinating song. When you first hear it, it sounds sort of simplistic. The woman who wrote the song was riding in a car with her husband in the years following World War II, when a lot of the young GIs were coming home and making families, and there were housing projects that grew up all over the land. One of these housing projects was called Levittown. Has that name ever come across your mind, Don?
Don't think so.
Well, Bill O'Reilly grew up in a Levittown. Now, the developer who made those homes, the last name was Levitt. And that area, and I don't know exactly where in the New York City area, it may have been on Long Island, but I don't know. But Bill O'Reilly often referred to growing up in Levittown. They were fairly compact homes, very simple. They were put up sometimes in less than a day, maybe just in a matter of hours. They consisted of two or three bedrooms and a bathroom, and a kitchen and a living room. They weren't constructed to be a mansion. And in the song, it talks about the person looked up on the hillside and saw these little boxes and described them as some being blue and some being red and some being pink and yellow. And they used the phrase all in a ticky-tacky way. Ticky-tacky, referring to how they were built rather cheaply, not the best materials and not very fancy. Well, the first time I heard this song, I thought, well, what an interesting song, but I don't really know what they're talking about. But then with time, I looked it up more. And when I was considering this message today, that song entered my mind. The song was talking about, back there in the late 50s, early 60s, the sameness, that had come over America. You think about it. You drive into any town, an actual town as opposed to a village, and every town is going to have a McDonald's. Every town is going to have a Burger King. Every town is going to have a Walmart. And you really can't tell what city you're in. And the homes were so much the same. I live in a little subdivision here, and there's not a lot of diversity in the homes that are in this area. And I'm sure they were all made by the same developer. And the writer of the song, made famous by Pete Seeger, was the monotony of it all. Well, little boxes referring to the houses we have grown up in. But here recently, that switched in my mind to consider church buildings. Have you thought about it, Don? How much church buildings all look the same?
Yeah, and a lot of them are really big.
Well, you have your mega churches. They have a certain look to them. But you go to an older part of town and they all have steps leading. Have you noticed that, Don?
And yeah, big steeples.
And they all have their steeple up in
They
top.
compete with steeples.
And they've got their stained glass, and inside they've got an organ. And there is up front as they say down south, a pulpit. And the seats are all lined up, the pews. And so you could walk into a church, and really, if you didn't see any identifying sign, you wouldn't know, is this a Catholic church? Now, Catholic churches, they have a lot of their idols up on the wall, and they sort of stand out as different. But Baptist church, Pentecostal church, Methodist church, Presbyterian, you name them. There's a sameness about all of them. And if you were really honest with yourself, and if you studied them some, you would have to admit that inside those buildings, they all basically teach the same thing. Well, Mike, what do you mean? Well, don't almost all of them teach that the goal, and I'm going to reference Billy Graham with his beautiful North Carolinian accent as he's on Larry King Live. I'll never forget this interview. He told Larry, who was a practicing Jew, I always thought that was unique, he would say, Larry, I'm going to heaven. And Larry, so are you. They all embrace this idea of going to heaven. Am I right or wrong, Don?
Yep.
They almost all of them embrace the idea that the day of worship is which day, Don?
Sunday.
Sunday. Now, you all know what I'm saying is true. Most of them believe in a concept of a Trinity. Whereas recently, a little over a month ago, I made a little bit of a joke about the Trinity, and the woman to whom I was speaking, I could tell it knife through her like a hot iron. How dare you make a joke about the Trinity? They all want to celebrate Easter and Christmas. Those are the big days. I can remember growing up in the Methodist Church. And you might skip out on a weekly session every now and then, but you had to go to Easter sunrise service. And you had to just fall in love and emotion with the idea of Christmas. You know, it's interesting. I have heard through the rumor mill that Catholics and Baptists don't like each other. Have you ever heard that, Don?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They can become quite vicious towards one another. And I have always wanted to go up to Baptists and say, why are you celebrating Christmas? And they, if I were to say that, they would say, well, that's the day Jesus was born. We're celebrating his birthday. And I can say, have you ever analyzed the word Christmas? Christ Mass? It comes from the Roman Church, the Roman Catholic Church. Why are you Baptists following Roman Catholic traditions? But they do it all the time. Why is Church Day in America Sunday for the most part? Because the Roman Catholic Church, way back in about 325, a Roman Emperor, Constantine, it's rumored that he had some type of conversion to Christianity, said he saw a cross up in the sky. Trust me, Jesus never put that cross up there. Another spiritual being may well have done that. But Constantine didn't want to appear to be Jewish. Now keep in mind, folks, up until about 325, over 300 years. That's longer than America has been a country. We are soon to go into our 250th year of being a sovereign nation. Much longer than that is the amount of time following the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ that everyone in the religious world accepted that the Sabbath was what we in our modern language call Saturday. From Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. But Constantine, who was the ruler of the Roman Empire, he decreed, an official decree, we will no longer keep the seventh-day Sabbath, but we are going to worship on the first day of the week, which in our English language today is called Sunday. Keep in mind, there was a time in history where there was no such thing as a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. All of those are named after gods of the Greek and Roman world. If you turn back to Genesis, when we're first told about creation or recreation, it just says the first day was called the first day. And the second day was called the second day. And the third day was called the third day. And the fourth day was called the fourth day. The fifth day was called the fifth day. The sixth day was called the sixth day. But then it comes to the seventh day. and it's called the Sabbath, ordained to be a day of rest, ordained by God. So somewhere through the process of time, the Jewish people hung on to that concept of the seventh-day Sabbath. But Constantine didn't want to be thought of as Jewish, so he changed the official worship day to Sunday, the day of the sun, and that's S-U-N. Now, cultures throughout the entire existence of humanity, certain cultures have literally worshipped the sun. So like Thursday was named after the god Thor, and Wednesday was named after the god Woden. And so they all these different modern names came from pagan sources. So, Baptist, why are you worshiping, why are you celebrating the Mass of Christ? I understand why the Catholic Church keeps that practice. They created it. Why are you doing it? I understand why the Catholic Church keeps Sunday, because you can trace back in history and realize that Constantine, of his own, declared Sunday to be the day of worship. And so every doctrine which exists in Western so-called Christianity comes from false sources. You may not be aware of that. As Charlie Kirk loved to say, prove me wrong. Look it up. Do a little study. Do a little investigating. Don't go to your minister or your pastor or your priest, because they're just going to feed you the company line. No, on your own. Go to the library, look up some books, get on the internet, find some historical sources. You will find out that everything I'm saying is true. I recently had a man write to me in a text. Well, let me go back a moment. I think the death and the murder, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was a horrible thing. I think all of us can agree on that. I must say, before the death of Charlie Kirk, I didn't really know that much about him. I had heard the name. I had heard the name Turning Point or Turning Point USA. I knew that Charlie went to college campuses and spoke to college students. And I knew that he invited the people who disagreed with him to be the first in line. But I didn't really know a lot about the things he was advocating. But after his horrible death, I've heard far more things about Charlie on my computer and on my phone than I ever knew while he was still alive. And in one of his videos, I actually heard Charlie refer to the word the Sabbath. Now, Charlie was very famous about talking about go to church, which implies a Sunday worship time frame. But then he used this word, the Sabbath. And the way he used it, I thought, is he saying what I think he's saying? And so I got on my computer, started doing some research. I found out, yes, indeed, here within the last year, I don't know exactly when, Charlie had started keeping in his own family, not going to some church meeting, but inside his own family, his wife and his 2 children, including Charlie, they started keeping a family Sabbath. Now, Charlie was in charge of several different organizations and was constantly in contact with hundreds and thousands of different people. I guess he was always on his phone talking or texting. But he decided that from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset, he was going to turn off his phone, put it in a drawer, and he wasn't going to touch it. And he told people, if you got a problem, just handle it yourself, because I'm not getting involved. Or contact me Saturday night or Sunday morning. And during that time, I read that there were no phones. He seemed to be very, very specific about that. No phones. I got the feeling he was really, like, the phone was always in his ear. And the family would be together. They might just rest or read. They would have a Bible study. I'm sure they would pray. Or they would go out and take walks, enjoy nature. But they just hung out in a quiet, peaceful atmosphere. And Charlie raved about how beneficial that had become to him. He always, even though Charlie was always traveling from spot to spot, he always wanted to be home Friday evening so that he could keep the Sabbath. Now, maybe some of you are hearing this didn't know it. Well, until just a short time ago, I didn't know it. And I've often wondered. Now, it's interesting, Charlie would keep his own family Sabbath setting, but the following morning, he would go off to an organized church meeting. I just wonder how long it would have taken before Charlie would have made a decision, or come to a decision, that I don't need to go to church on Sunday. I need to go to church on Saturday, the 7th-day Sabbath. And oh my, would that have become complicated for Charlie and his family. Now, I am told, and I have read, that Charlie's wife was Catholic. Now, I have a very good Catholic friend who told me just yesterday that he was convinced in his heart that given enough time, Charlie would have become a Catholic. But I read on the computer that Charlie had stated adamantly that he would never stop attending his Pentecostal church. I didn't know that about Charlie. So I've learned much more about Charlie since his untimely death than I ever knew before. So you can take all of the major doctrines of all the established church groups, and almost all, the vast majority, and you can prove to yourself, just from reading your Bible, that what the Bible says and what these churches teach are not in agreement. In fact, it's the total opposite. Now that's a head scratcher, isn't it? And if you can tell that to people, and I have before, different people that I've known, or maybe fellow sports official, and we're riding together for an hour, and maybe after the event we ride back together. And they just become astounded. And almost always they say, well, I need to study that. Okay, I encourage you to study it. But almost always they end up going to their local minister, pastor, priest, whatever, to get their advice. And guess what? Their own local pastor, priest, minister, they always convince them, oh, don't you listen to Garrett. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Listen to me because I'm the learned authority. Don't know how many times I've had this. Don, many years ago I told this story. I don't think I've told it in a long, long time. We used to have in town a Bible bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
It was that little shopping mall, Don.
Close to Walmart, wasn't it? Right to the...
No, that's where they moved to. But at one time, they were located, well, I can see it in my mind's eye. It was a small little shopping center. I went in there one time looking for a certain book about different religions. I wanted to educate myself on what different churches believe or what they didn't believe. And a lady came to attend to me. I'm saying the lady was probably between 55 and 60 years old. She wasn't some little teenager that I was going to pick on. And if she had been a teenager, I wouldn't have brought it up. I figured I would be taking advantage of her knowledge. But this was a very serious woman, very pious. Do you know what the word pious means, Don?
Highfalutin?
No, holy.
Holy. Oh.
Holy. Very pious woman. And she wanted you to know that she was. She asked, may I help you? I said, well, yes, I'm looking for a certain type of book. It described it. We looked through a few books on their shelves, and I did not find the one I wanted. But I said, well, since I'm here, I was feeling a little mischievous. I wanted to hear her, what she had to say. I said, I have a question for you that's been rolling around in my mind. She said, well, yes, I would love to hear it. I said, let's take a man, an example. A man, he was 89 years old a few days ago when he died. Now, this man went to church every single weekend, every Sunday, went to Bible school or went to Sunday school, was a good man, took care of his family, loved his children, loved his grandchildren. And as I described this man, this woman, she almost folded her hands in a prayerful fashion, like, oh, he was such a godly man. And this was a fictional person, but she was just enamored and enraptured with the idea that such a man could have existed. I said, where is he right now? And she, again, almost with prayerful, like, people like to make this hand gesture. Don, have you ever figured out how that means prayer?
No.
It sort of reminds you of a steeple, doesn't it? Do you get the picture? By the way, have you ever wondered why churches have steeples up on top of them, most of them? Some of the steeples are really long and slender. Some are shorter and sort of fatter. But why a steeple? It is an interesting story, and there's nothing really theological about it. I won't share that one with you right now. Some of you might become so disgusted you'll turn off your computer. But I said to the lady, "Where is he now?" And she got this almost, hands in a prayerful like look. And she went, "Oh, he's up in heaven with the Lord." I said, "Really?" I said, "Well, I'm confused." Yeah, I was stringing her along. I was having some fun for myself. But again, she wasn't 17 years old or 16. She was a fully grown, fully mature. Looked like maybe she was the manager of that store. Professed that she knew everything. Oh, where is he now? Well, he's up in heaven with the Lord. I said, okay. But I said, I opened my Bible the other week, and I read where Jesus said, "I will come again and gather you unto myself." I said, if this man, we'll call him George, if George is up in heaven and all these other good, godly men and women are up in heaven, why does Jesus have to come back and gather them together? I said, that's a head scratcher to me. If they're already in heaven, there's no need to come back to the earth. Do you see the problem there, Don?
Yep.
Now, I'm just telling you what they teach. And so I'm asking her. And she didn't have an answer. She's thinking. She's stumped. This went on for a long time, 3 or 4 minutes. 3 or 4 minutes in total silence in a conversation seems like an hour. She does not know what to say. And finally, she just walked away. I saw her go back into a little cloakroom, I'll call it. She put on a jacket or a sweater and walked out the front door. And I'd be willing to bet she went straight to her minister's house. I said, "Okay, Reverend, how should I answer that question?" Well, I never saw her again. I don't think she wanted to see me, because I had 1,000 questions like that for her that she would not have been able to answer. Because what her church taught theologically and what they believed theologically does not come from the Bible. It's just a collection of myths and ideas and fables that has been organized into church doctrine or dogma. But do you think she changed, Don? Do you think she stopped going to her church?
Probably not.
No. She was there the next Sunday. And still just in the front row, probably so thankful for her minister and all the wonderful truth that she knew. And almost everything she believed was a blatant lie. She had been lied to since she was in diapers. and all throughout her life. Yet she presumed that she was so holy. Well, I recently had a number of conversations with a man that I'm going to call Gary. In truth, that's not his real name, but as the old TV show Dragnet used to say, names have been changed to protect the guilty. And I must say, my estimation of Gary, my understanding of him, from what I have heard, from what I have seen, from what I have experienced, from what I have read in text messages, Gary thinks he knows me. Gary thinks he understands me and the way I think. Now, in truth, Gary doesn't have a clue who I am or what I believe, and Gary has watched some of the videos in the past, or what makes me tick. I must confess, throughout most of my life, because I know that my ideas that I have learned from the Bible are so contrary to most people, I have learned just out of self-preservation and peacefulness that I keep a lot of my ideas to myself. Because I know that if I were to open my mouth at a dinner party, at a dinner table, and tell the people there what I actually believe, I know that most of those people would have great contempt for me, if not just out and out anger and hatred. So I've kept things to myself. I'm going to say some things on this next series, as today and future, that I'm not sure that I've ever said to the open public. I might have said some of the things to a closed congregation, but I've decided it's time for me to speak up. And it's not going to win me many friends, and it might very well drive some friends away. I don't care anymore. I'm 75 years of age. How many more years do I have? I would ask you, Don, but I might not like your answer. Do I have 5 years left in me? Oh, I hope so. Do I have 10 years? Can I look forward to becoming someday 85 years of age? Well, I hope so, but I don't know. I might walk out on my front porch and fall down the stairs and hit my head on the concrete, and Don finds me sprawled out on the concrete, dead. What would you do if you did that, Don?
Check for any money that may be laying around. Credit cards.
Okay, I'm going to get my hands on that wood chipper now. That was a joke. So, can I make it to 90? That's 15 years. Now, trust me, folks, at this stage of my life, okay, how old are you now, Don?
I'll be 70. It's the last day of the year.
Okay, let's just call you 70. Can you easily remember when you were 55?
Yeah,
That time period.
yeah, about around that age, yeah.
Does it really seem that long ago?
No, time went by. It don't seem that long ago when I was in high school.
It flies by, doesn't it?
It's all downhill.
Well, hopefully it's not all downhill. The last few years of my life seem like I'm going downhill, but I think I've stabilized. I pray that I am. 15 years at this point in my life isn't a very long time. Now, it's better than nothing. Will I be able to match my father's age of 93 and a half? I don't know. Hopefully. But what I'm saying is, we don't know. Every day you wake up is a gift. And at least you can say, well, Jesus has kept me alive for another day. This might be the day that it all ends, but at least I've been given the beginning of another day. And so what can I make out of it? How can I use it? But Gary has no idea what makes me tick. And I haven't shared much with him. We really haven't had that many occasions to cross paths. But recently here, on multiple occasions in text, I think my phone is in the bathroom. I could literally get my phone and scroll back and find it, where he bluntly stated to me that he thought I was mentally ill. Now, Don, I don't know if I should ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
You've known me a long time now, haven't you?
Like 20 some odd years.
Yeah, seems more like 25 years.
Pretty close, yeah.
Close to that?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought I was mentally ill?
Obsessive at times, but not mentally ill.
Now, what word did you use?
Obsessive.
Obsessive?
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree. I can become obsessed on things. I remember out in Arizona when I was a teacher, I decided to plant a few rose bushes in my yard.
How many?
A few. I decided to plant a few.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many I ended up with?
Ain't no telling.
Over 200.
About like your trees out here.
About like my trees. My yard looks like a forest, folks. Does it look like a forest, Don?
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like you could walk in there and get lost and never
camping.
come out.
We go camping.
Go camping. Critters would come up to you. There may be deer roaming around in my backyard. I don't know for sure. Yeah, I admit I can become obsessive. But did you ever think I was insane? That I was mentally ill?
No, I wouldn't be hanging around as much.
Well, old Gary, that's what he thinks. And he was proud to be able to say that to me. Old Gary was just giving me the dickens. He would write me a shorter text where he was just pounding on me. And after letting it all sink in for a few days, I wrote him a book. Don, am I capable of writing long texts?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I admit it. I'm obsessive. But I wanted to get into every little nook and cranny that he brought up. Well, that wasn't enough for Gary. He had to come back and send me another text where he had like 16 points. He even numbered them. Point number 1, point number 2, point number 3. Just bam, bam, bam.
It's like somebody else that I know that did that.
Who would that be?
In Alabama.
Oh, yeah. Yes. There is a certain similarity there,
Yeah.
Don. Birds of a feather flock together, or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I did, Don?
Wrote another book.
I wrote him another book. And then he came back with another, just pounding on me. Don, if I had actually believed everything that Gary had said, the right course of action would for me to get a pistol, put it to my head, and pull the trigger.
Oh,
I'm serious.
maybe that's what he wanted.
Well, I halfway think maybe that was what he wanted. I mean, he held me in total contempt and hatred. Now, in another one of my books that I sent to him, now, you must understand, Gary thinks he's a very religious man. There's no hatred quite like religious hatred. You know, fairly calm people can just become bonzo when it comes to religious hatred. If you don't believe me, study history and study all of the wars which have been precipitated because of religious differences and religious hatred. It's astounding. It's either one country wanting to grab land or one country wanting to dominate religiously. That's where most of the wars have come from. Well, so I wrote back to Gary. I said, I would love to know how in your mind you view your comments, your hateful comments towards me with the words of Jesus Christ and other writers of the Bible. And I, again, that text is in my phone that I think I left in my bathroom. It normally is right there, but it's not there, so it must be over in the bathroom. Like, if you, these are the words of Jesus Christ. If you're not willing to forgive other people, what does it say, Don?
Then you won't be forgiven.
Say it again, Don.
You won't be forgiven.
If you're not willing to forgive others, you will not be forgiven. Jesus once said, judge not, that you be not judged. I'm going to paraphrase the next part to make it a little more easier to understand. By what standard, by what measurement you use to judge others will be the standard that I use to judge you. Oh, that'll put a scare into you. I will show no mercy to those whom have shown no mercy. And there's a bunch of scriptures like that. I just did these off the top of my head. I didn't even quote the book, the chapter, and the verse. But they're all pretty well known if you've had any exposure to the Bible. Well, guess what happened after that, Don?
What?
He writes me another text where he acts like he wants to be nicey-nicey. And, oh, Michael, I don't hate you.